Hi, welcome back to Baba Eats. Today I'm going to show you what I got at the grocery store for a week's worth of meals, and I'll show you the meals that I make with these groceries throughout the week. And my goal is to use up everything in the fridge before anything goes bad, and also do some creative new meals this week. So this week at the grocery store, I did what I typically do, which is try to get a lot of produce and whatever looks good and fresh. This weekend, we also did a trip to the farmer's market, so we got a couple of things at the farmer's market, a couple of heads of lettuce, and some sprouts, and some mushrooms. And these mushrooms looked so good. It was a variety pack of a bunch of different mushrooms that I'll show you later when I get to the meal in which I use those mushrooms. At the grocery store, I got orange juice, grapefruit juice. The goal this week isn't to use up everything in the fridge, but just to make sure that nothing goes bad. So I may not be using up all of the juice or drinks if they aren't expiring this week. I also got a bunch of yogurt at the store, and that lasts for several weeks, so I won't be using up all of the yogurt. But I do intend to use up the other perishable groceries. So I got some grapes and berries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries. My daughter loves berries, and so I like to have those available for breakfast. We got some cauliflower. I got some squash. I had some mushrooms left over from a prior week, some onions in the fridge left over from a prior week, and some pomegranate seeds that were left over. And for proteins this week, I did get some animal proteins. I got some fresh salmon and a whole chicken that I will be roasting. In my produce drawer, I have those 2 heads of lettuce that I got at the farmer's market. I also have a bell pepper that was left over from a prior week, some dill, and some carrot. In my fruit drawer, I have some citrus and apples. We go through quite a bit of apples, some dates, and some grapes that were left over. And not shown in the fridge, I also had some items that I just keep on the counter, like onions and bananas and some grapefruits. So that's what the stock looks like in the fridge this week, and I'll be working my way through all of those vegetables and fruits with our meals this week. And this is going to be a lot of meals for the week full of meals, so I'll be splitting this into a video of multiple parts. I'll be talking about the first couple of days and the meals that I made, and since this is a week that I purchased some animal proteins, I have a salmon and a whole chicken, I always like to start with the meals that are going to incorporate the animal proteins when they are the freshest. So fish especially, I prefer to have that as fresh as possible. So we'll be having fish on the first night, and then the second night I'll be making the chicken. And I like to get a whole chicken occasionally because I can do so much with it. It can be 3 or 4 or even more meals when I get a whole chicken. For our dinner for night 1, I'm going to be making the salmon along with some vegetables and a salad. For the vegetables, I'm going to roast some broccoli and Japanese sweet potatoes. The Japanese sweet potatoes last for a while in the cabinet. I've had those since last week. I start by peeling off the skin. These Japanese sweet potatoes tend to have a pretty thick skin that is tough to chew. So I prefer to take the skin off of those. Then I'll be chopping them up into cubes and seasoning them with just some simple olive oil, salt, and pepper. That's my go-to, is just keep it really simple and not overload the spices to really be able to taste the flavor in the vegetable. And pairing that with broccoli to get some green in there. I always try to have multiple colors in a dish, and that's one of the strategies that I use when I'm trying to figure out what things to pair together, is to pick things with multiple colors. So for this dinner, we're gonna have the green from the broccoli, the white from the potato, the pink from the salmon, and then a colorful salad with some greens in there, some yellow bell pepper, some red tomatoes, and it looks really beautiful. And I know that it's very nutritious because I'm getting all the colors of the rainbow in this dinner. For the salmon tonight, I put a little bit of honey on it, some lemon, salt and pepper, and some fresh dill that I had. Dill is a really nice spice to use on fish and chicken, and it's not one that I buy all the time, but I always like to use it on occasion when I'm just feeling something different, and it goes really well in a lot of different meals. So I'll be using this dill on the fish, and then I'll also be using some dill when I make the chicken later on this week. And I like to keep my salad dressing pretty simple as well. For tonight, I'm using some olive oil, lemon, salt, and pepper. And I go through a ton of olive oil. I always try to keep an extra bottle on hand because I just go through it so quickly, since I use it for sauteing and roasting and dressings. So it's always nice to have some to be able to refill. I especially like this glass bottle with a slow pour top that I got at Trader Joe's. And I usually buy olive oil at Costco in bulk so that I can then refill my glass bottle. Now going into day 2, and we're starting with breakfast. And I'm not showing everything that we eat in the day, but just the major meals. Usually in the morning, we'll have a little bit of a snack and then do some activity like a walk outside. And then when we get back, have our breakfast. And today for breakfast, I'm going to be making fried eggs and accompanying that with a mixture of berries. And my daughter loves berries. I love berries, so it's always nice to get those every week and use them when they're the freshest. So I start using berries on day 1. Raspberries are some, really any berries, but raspberries in particular, I notice are not usually as fresh, and they tend to go bad really quickly. So depending upon where you are, it may look different from you, but I like to take note of which berries are most likely to go bad first and use those first, and save the hardier berries. Like blueberries typically last a while longer in the fridge, and hold off on using all of the blueberries and save some for later in the week. And with this egg breakfast today, I'm going to put the fried egg on a piece of toast. I have really been enjoying making my own bread lately, and I have some rye bread that I'm going to use for my breakfast and my husband's breakfast. And I really like this bread, but my toddler does not want to eat that bread. I happen to have a piece of brioche from a brioche bun that was left over from a previous week. So I'm going to be giving her a piece of brioche, and my husband and I are going to be eating a piece of dark rye with that egg. And sometimes she won't even eat the bread. She'll just lick the yolk off of it until the bread gets soggy, and then she might eat the bread. But the egg poke is a breakfast that she pretty much always enjoys. So it's one that I serve very frequently. And when I do that breakfast, I'll accompany it with some kind of fruit like apples or grapes, bananas, berries. Now it's lunchtime, and I'm going to be using some of the leftovers from the night before and freshening those up a bit. So I'm going to be making a sauce that I'll use to put on the top of everything. In the sauce, I'm going to put tahini, some yogurt, some lemon, and some salt and pepper. And I'm going to be using the leftover potatoes and broccoli from the night before, and I'll be making some quinoa that I'm going to boil in vegetable broth and some microgreens to put on top of that. And I also topped it off with some hemp seed to have a little bit extra protein in there. That's a nice little addition, as well as some pomegranate seeds that I already had in the fridge for that pop of color, again, getting colors in there, and for that nice sweet and kind of tangy flavor and crunch that it adds as well. It made it super refreshing to have that in addition to the sauce with the yogurt, and this was a really delicious lunch that I enjoyed a lot. Now for dinner on night 2, I'm going to be making this whole roasted chicken, and I'm seasoning it with a little bit of olive oil, of course, my go-to oil, some lemon and salt and pepper, and I have some dill that I'm going to chop up, and I'm going to put some of the dill stems inside the cavity of the chicken along with the lemon once it's squeezed. And then I'm going to spread some dill on top of the chicken and put my onion around the chicken in the pot with the chicken, and then also adding some garlic on top of the chicken. I love garlic flavor and like to add garlic into my cooking as much as possible. And for the chicken, I had it at about 375 or 400 and roasted it in the oven for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. I always confirm with a thermometer that the chicken has reached at least 165 Fahrenheit. To accompany the chicken, I'm going to be making some roasted squash that I'll be putting in the oven. I have some zucchini and some yellow squash that I like to cut up in discs and mix that with some olive oil, salt, and pepper and roast it in the oven right alongside the chicken. And that won't take as long, so I'll put it in the oven maybe half an hour after the chicken goes into the oven. Final element that I included in this plate is some wild rice that I cooked on the stovetop. And the final dish came out delicious, and my daughter especially loved the chicken. She ate all the chicken I put on her plate and wanted more and more and more, so she ate quite a bit of chicken that evening. And that takes us to the end of day 2, so we're only 2 dinners in, a breakfast and a lunch, and it is a lot of content already. So we've used up our 2 animal proteins, we've used up some of our berries, some of our vegetables, and we still have a bunch of vegetables left, some lettuce, some tomatoes, and cauliflower, and all of that will come later in the week. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned to see what we're eating the rest of the week to use up all of those vegetables in the fridge.